Okay, so remember that the groups that are ultimately responsible for the high volume of mass shootings have hired people to covertly harass me and change my voice because they don't want you to hear my message. Why did the Arkansas shooting happen? Well, it's simple. It's about sexual control. If you think about guns and cars and how they relate to sex, right? It's like sex, drugs, and rock and roll. When the military, they say, let's rock and roll. That connection is solid. Now, what is far more important than that is who I am. Okay? I've proven definitively, and every church, every major church kind of system, right? Catholics, Mormons, Protestants, denominations, what have you, has conceded my point by their actions and otherwise. And I'm the idea that Christ is superimposed on and that they intend to cover that up on behalf of the state while pretending to throw me a bone at times, which is part of their psychological operation. They try to create the Stockholm Syndrome in people, if you will. A lot of these shooters were targeted individuals in various ways. Okay, when we look at the wordplay in dominatrix, right, has everything to do with the matrix. The brain hacking, the artificial intelligence, they're trying to hook people to a machine using substances and materials of mind control, military-grade psychology, what have you. And most of you know this. If you don't believe me, just go to TikTok, right, and just go through the videos of young women, young teenage females. They all look like they're, under mind control these days, right? They have this crazy look to them. They have these weird cultures. And it's not just the generational gap, because I am 42 years old, okay? It's obvious, okay? They are not thinking straight. There's cognitive impairment, which is one of the ways that people control people's brains, is they impair the brain function, and then they, try to make them suggestible in various ways with various techniques and substances and materials, okay, of mind control. So when we look at the mass shootings, okay, they're occurring because America doesn't have the courage to kind of stand up and say, look, these are the facts here. This is what's right and this is what's wrong. So in their own way, they're saying, give us Barabbas. Something I would never do, something I will never do. I will never betray God. I will always insist on the divine order with me in my rightful place. You can't serve God while cheating me out of my rightful place. If you were to say to somebody, hey, that you think you can serve God by massacring 25,000 people every day, and that you can magically still serve God by just being a coward and doing that, they would say you're crazy. Well, people are getting killed all the time. The poor and the victims will always be with you, but I will not always be with you. So to cheat me out of my rightful place is worse than killing everybody that ever was killed or caused to starve to death ever. Okay? This is why in the Bible it says, all the blood of all the innocent will come on you. Okay? That's what that's about. It's when you come into that spirit of rebellion that you're guilty of every sin there ever was. If you think about the bigger picture, you think about generational ill-gotten gains, generational guilt, generational complicity. If you look at this thing carefully and think about generational Satanism, okay, people being slack in their work because they didn't care to go out of their way, to go the distance, to be righteous. So it's clear. There's no other way to look at it. For those of you who are confused why I'm Christ, right? Bethlehem built he ham, right? Built he him. Built. What are the odds the word built is scrambled in the word Bethlehem and the word hits is scrambled in the word Christ? The bridegroom, Marshall, is marital scrambled. The root and offspring of David and the bright morning star. So it's not in the military or police officer or bodybuilder or MMA fighter. It's just a cage fighter, but actual monotheistic. Morally precise. God, all good, all knowing, all powerful. Monotheistic martial arts order. Kingdom not of this world. Royal African falcon. Why the falcon? Because it's there in the Bible that the hawk with God's wisdom spreads his wing to the south, and that the jackals are a marker, one of the markers for Satanism and chaos and desolation when the earth is transformed, right? Trance-like state, transformed. Seal, right? Seal and deal versus doing God's work and healing. Heal, rhyme and reason. The occultists who worship the devil, who confuse you about things, put in their wordplay, then they brag it's hidden in plain view because they get sexual satisfaction as they get people to date people who they otherwise wouldn't in various ways, and they did this before the computer was invented with various forms of psychology and drugging. Okay, they've been doing this for thousands of years. So they're bragging. In fact, the word secret in secret society is a plain word for secrete, like secretion. And Crete, where King Minos in Greek mythology is said to be the father of homosexuality. And you can look at Pan, whose name means all, for all the Greco-Roman deities. You can look at the European nobles, and it lines right up. And where does Pan come from? Well, Zeus is said to have his counterpart Baal in the Middle East. Okay? So that Baal system came from Babylon after it fell. Genesis 10 was when it was rising with God. Nimrod was a mighty warrior before the Lord. Ham begot Cush, Cush begot Nimrod. Nimrod founded Babylon. And when it fell, it kept falling all the way through Nebuchadnezzar and onward. Nebuchadnezzar worships Nebo, a demon, a deity of science, knowledge, what have you. And there's a bunch of deities. Storms, chaos, okay. You know, false conceptions of love, Eros, Cupid, Aphrodite, Venus. Okay, there's a lot of these ideas there. And they are the satanic ideas that the elite worship. Even if you're not religious, this is part of history, right? The cults of Zeus were part of history as much as, Christianity was a part of, modern Western culture. So as you look at that and you look at what's going on here, you see definitively that for mere theater arts, propaganda, and psychology, people are selling themselves out and their offspring, and they're being tricked using rape by deception. Now, anyone with any sense who watches this video must know that the things I'm talking about is more important than the details of that shooting. The bigger picture of things, when 9 million people starve to death every year or die of hunger-related issues, a handful of people killed at a grocery store is not that significant. It's sad. It's unfortunate. I wish their families would have scrambled to do what's right in their whole life. I wish those kids would have scrambled. I wish that they would have brought them to God. Now, I'm not going to say whether or not they go to heaven or not as out of respect for their families, but you need to scramble to do God's work and obey God through me, or you're not doing God's work. You need to understand that. The biggest tragedy that occurs every day is all the people who die and go to hell, not people who get their flesh killed. The Bible says the spirit is everything, the flesh means nothing. Even if you're agnostic, you should know that principles are greater than somebody dying. Why do you think people go to war? Because they believe that the price they'll pay in terms of human death is not as big of a price as the loss of principle if you don't go to war. That's the basic idea behind all wars, and most people have it wrong and they fight for the wrong principles, but that idea in its pure form is sound. And if you don't know that I'm right, you are a fucking coward.